So, diversity, a very polarizing word.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States.
If you're like me, you spend a lot of time in the dark corners of the internet, and you've probably heard of the term forced diversity. For the lucky few who don't know exactly what this concept is, let me give you the quick rundown. Forced diversity is when a non-Caucasian character is put into a piece of entertainment or art and is viewed as out of place. This is supposedly done so people can view the piece of entertainment and automatically get good social points for being so accepting of non-white male characters in entertainment. But the overuse of said non-white male characters leads to a lack of nuanced character development, which can supposedly lead to white genocide, I think. Back me up on that. So the main point people who advocate forced diversity usually say something to the following. We don't have anything against, people who don't look like me, as long as they're written good. It's just a matter of nuance, mate, okay? I don't hate people who aren't white. I would definitely watch a movie about a non-white person as long as it's written well. I really like... Cause they're written well. All I'm saying, movies, these with the sole purpose of gaining attention and supposedly being woke and progressive is just like really distracting, Just having diverse characters for the sake of being diverse just really takes away from my experience. Come on, mate, it's a slippery slope. Like, it's a bit of a balancing act, I'm not racist. But obviously I'm being a bit insincere and just being a bit exaggeratory to play up for laughs. But that's what a lot of people would say. Not always white, but tends to be. They're not exclusionatory per se, and they're not against diversity. They just want it on their own terms. And that doesn't make them racist, that doesn't make them sexist or what have you. I'm not saying that. No one's calling anyone sexist here. The real issue here, and the point that can be argued from my perspective, is this worldview is a bit selfish and ignorant. The clear distinction here is it's not outright hateful, but I feel this is misguided, and I'm here to counteract this line of thinking. And before I go any further, I just want to make it as clear as that you're not a bad person for having this stance. All I'm hoping to get out of this video is that people will be more empathetic to where I'm coming from. All I'm trying to do is counteract all the supposed issues and arguments forced diversity causes and counter them one by one. I'm also trying to acknowledge the positive aspects we can take away from what has been stated previously. I'm not trying to attack or demonize anyone here. There is too much of that on the goddamn internet. I'm trying to be about good vibes on this channel. It's alright to have a difference of opinion. That is what makes us human after all. The most prominent argument is that people who have the most serious disdain for what they see as forced diversity is not stemming from the hatred of non-Caucasian, non-male characters in entertainment. It's just that they have such an appreciation for art, cinema, gaming, and entertainment, what have you. They think diverse characters who are poorly written is a bad precedent to set. It's not a matter of race or sex, it's a matter of nuance and writing. That statement I hear is a strong one, but not for the reasons you're probably thinking. The core statement here is that of tokenism versus diversity. Diversity is good, and tokenism is detrimentally negative to the minority experience, equating the life of a non-Caucasian person to being identical as a Caucasian person. The only difference here being that their face happens to be a different color or their gender or sexual orientation. This line of reasoning is something I wholeheartedly agree with. Obviously, being a mixed person myself, when I see someone to a similar background of mine represented in film, cinema, or gaming, I will always take the realistic, honest, nuanced representation over the token guy. I don't want to see a white character who just happens to have a yellow face. But the real problem here is stemming from the fact that Western entertainment is mostly comprised of and made for Caucasian men. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just stating the facts on how it is. Facts don't care about your feelings! One day I'll be cool and the footy boys will finally accept me. Furthermore, Caucasian people who present this argument deliberately exempt themselves from the equation. What I mean by this is that they never take into account the hundreds of poorly written non-diverse characters. How many times have you seen a bland whole-grain Cole Jensen in your entertainment, or a plastic lifeless Stacy? Not to mention the truckloads of white dude bro gunmen. This stance has them implicitly exempt from the argument. Why is it that diverse characterization is always held to a higher standard than non-diverse characterization? Well, the conclusion I've come to, and you can disagree yourself, is due to the fact that Caucasian people people and, some other people on the whole can't differentiate between tokenism and true diversity. Amplifying my point here, and I'm not saying this applies to all Caucasian people, I'm also guilty of doing this myself, but it's often harder for a Caucasian person to identify whether a piece of entertainment is truly a nuanced, diverse piece of characterization, due to the fact that an experience like that is completely foreign to Caucasian identity. So subtle nuances will be very difficult to pick up on. Something like Get Out, with its subtle depiction of the African American experience, went completely over my head personally, and it's safe to say the general white going audience's head as well. Still a great horror film if you didn't pick up on any of the racial subtext. It wasn't for me personally until I read articles delving into the subtle nuances in dialogue and direction, and also talking with my black friends did I realize the deeply nuanced characterization, the subtle attention to detail about the fetishization of black identity, and the deep-rooted racial suburban horror. In academic circles, this is known as double consciousness, but that is something I am nowhere near capable of talking about, and I've gone off topic. Research it for yourself, it's really fascinating. I also feel this stems from the topic of so-called forced diversity. It's a very loaded and divisive statement, and of course there are outliers on both sides, some who will use the stance to hide their racism, saying they don't want to see non-whites in films not out of spite or prejudice just because it wasn't gelling well, but in reality they just don't want to see brown people in cinema. Also, circling back to the idea of tokenism versus true diversity, tokenism isn't really the worst thing. It's always best to identify the quality characterization over the hollow characterization, but of course, just because someone is written poorly doesn't mean they shouldn't have the right to be there, no matter what race, gender, or what have you. Regular nice people can make the distinction. Also, always be skeptical of people who don't have skin in the game of such thing. Forced diversity has become a buzzword thrown around by some bigots, rationalize and critique against works featuring diverse characters on the merit that diverse people make something worse. Not to say bigotry is mutually exclusive to conservative mindsets, it can take many different forms. I hate how white liberals always hijack this topic and make it about themselves. Not all leftists, but the few I've seen on YouTube tend to speak on behalf of diverse groups, in quotation. At the end of the day, we're humans, not as a token checklist so you can feel good about yourselves. I feel like white leftists need to improve in viewing non-white, non-Caucasian people as just that, people, instead of their very own little oppressed pet that they need to save. Anyway, guys, it's not a difficult concept to grasp here. Minorities, gays, transgender, gender fluid. Wait, do we have I live in Australia, I don't think we have gender fluid people. What exactly are gender fluid people? Whatever, the point is, people who aren't white and straight exist and also like consuming entertainment. I love Marvel movies, I love gaming, I love anime, I love all that shit. As mediums like gaming and cinema grows, so does the range of people that comprise their consumer base. As such, it only makes sense to put some stuff out there that appeals to these emerging markets. Now, most normal people admittedly understand this, but the internet and YouTube, on the other hand, nearly every time a character is revealed to be a non-white guy, or God forbid, a woman, or a minority star in a game or a movie, lots of people get angry. And a lot of people get angry and they throw around this word, forced diversity. How can diversity be forced? People like to say gay characters and whatever aren't being done well. But the criteria is really never solid, because the criticism is never coming from a gay person. If it's a matter of nuance, let the people who it's appealing to decide. And I feel like some Caucasian people can't make that distinction. They want it on their terms, they want diversity how they want it. But at the end of the day, diversity is not for you, mate, it's for me. Well, not all diversity obviously, but you get what I mean. People complain and that's really disappointing. In other words, no matter what companies, artists try, it's never really going to be good enough for some people. Caucasian people already have a surplus of representations in all kinds of media. If tomorrow every single company on earth decided to make their character a gender fluid, redhead, radical feminist, black woman, trans, something, whatever, you'll still have an infinite backlog of media of Caucasian people in lead roles. Not to say I want that. God, please don't do that. That, I would, no. I do not like feminism. Anyway, sorry, not trying to make this political. As such, I think it's only fair that we allow other groups to build up our own lineage of heroes and who we can look up to. Caucasian characters will always be there and that's alright. It's just that they won't be the only ones there anymore and that's perfectly okay. That's not something we should yell at each other over. I'll give you an example that's really personal for me. When I see someone like Ryan Potter, a handsome-ass Hafu Japanese boy in Titans, that's mean cinema. Don't get me wrong, his characterization will fall into the supposed false diversity because it's rubbish. Don't get me wrong, the whole show is garbage. He has like, what, 2 scenes of backstory? But I still enjoyed that because it was like seeing me in film. And I rarely see that. And I don't want anyone to take that away from me. So in conclusion, if you take anything away from this video, you're not a bad person for being a conservative, you're not a bad person for being a feminist. It's okay to be white, you're not a bad person for whatever political ideology you believe in or whatever stance you have. A lot of people on YouTube just want to attack each other, and that's not how you change opinions like this. The world isn't just good people and scumbags, it's a mixture of both. You can hurt people trying to do the right thing and vice versa, you can do a good thing by being selfish. It's a weird dichotomy we live in, so next time you see something as forced diversity, don't say something you can't take back straight away. And at the end of the day, we're all gonna fucking die because of global warming, so why not just be nice to each other? Like, seriously.